One of the biggest shows in Bellator history is in the books. Bellator 206 has wrapped up here in San Jose at SAP Center. We're going to break down what happened right now for you guys. And I'm Marc Raimondi from MMAfighting.com with a fantastic cast. Dave Meltzer, legendary combat sports journalist from MMAfighting.com and the Wrestling Observer newsletter. You know this young lady, Ilima-Lei Macfarlane, the Bellator women's flyweight champion, who is going to be headlining her own event in a few months now. We'll maybe get to that a little bit later. But first, we want to talk about Bellator 206. The main event pitted Rory MacDonald going up in weight to middleweight to take on Gegard Mousasi for the Bellator middleweight title. Ilima, I want to start with you a little bit. A big part of this fight going in, of course, was the talk about the size. How much is that going to matter? MacDonald is going to be the smaller man. We knew that. We didn't know how much it would actually manifest itself in the fight. Do you think it did? Do you think that Mousasi's win over MacDonald, of course, by second round TKO, was affected by that size?
I do. I do because everybody knows what a high-level fighter Rory MacDonald is. He's one of the best in the world, and to see him be literally dominated by Mousasi was mind-blowing. So I think the size discrepancy did have something to do with it. But Mousasi's a beast, man. I actually had him from the beginning. I bet on Mousasi. His jab, his striking's phenomenal. But when Rory tried to go for that Imanari roll, it was kind of the beginning of the end because as soon as Mousasi got on top, it was over.
That was in the second round. Dave, so Mousasi now retains the Bellator middleweight title.
Yeah.
What is next for him? It seems like he wants to face Rafael Lovato Jr., but that fight against Machida, who has a fight coming up, but also is down the line and one that people are probably going to look at as a big fight. But what is next?
That's obviously the bigger of the two is going to be the Machida fight, if they can get to it, if Machida wins his first fight. And Mousasi will fight one more time, I guess, with Lovato. And then from there, we'll have to see where it goes. Maybe he moves up to light heavyweight. He's fought light heavyweight before if there's nobody else at middleweight. But, we've got one and potentially two fights down the line at middleweight here. So that takes 6-9 months right there that it's taken care of.
Do you think it would be better if Mousasi would wait and maybe wait for Machida, or do you think the Lovato fight makes sense?
That depends on. I think the Lovato fight makes sense. Yeah. It's two. Something to keep him busy because Machida's not fighting until December. So for him to be ready, that'll be a long time off.
This fight was kind of billed as one of the biggest fights in Bellator history. Yeah. Seeing the crowd and everything that happened tonight, was it the biggest, do you think, or at least on that list?
I tell you what. We just heard there was 11,000 people here, and except for like the Frank Shamrock fights, that's essentially about what Fedor did. It's a little less than Gina Carano and Cyborg did. So that's a big number when you think about it. When you think about those legendary fights, Fedor and Verdum and everything like that, that this is in the same ballpark as those fights. So yeah. I'm surprised. The people here saw this, or the whole. It was the totality of the card. I don't think it was the one match. This was a deep card. Wanderlei and Rampage was a big deal. I think Kerry Melendez locally was a big deal. But it was a. So yeah. But this, as far as it was champion. Two big names. I don't know if it's the biggest. To me, I always think of like the Chandler Alvarez stuff as being the biggest. Just because those fights were just so exciting and everything like that, and it was a great rivalry back and forth. But yeah, this is right up there with it.
Lehmann, Rory MacDonald, you mentioned, obviously still one of the better fighters in the world, one of the best welterweights in the world, has a win over UFC champion Tyron Woodley. How do you see him moving on now? Is this a loss that could affect him as he moves now to the Bellator welterweight Grand Prix, or do you think that can be kind of pushed aside and he can focus on 170 again?
I think it'll be pushed aside. Again, he's a world-class athlete. His mental game is, up there. So I feel like this wasn't his true weight class, and so it's not something that's going to be a huge blemish on his career or his mental state at all, I don't think. And so, yeah, I think he's gonna take the welterweight Grand Prix by storm.
Let's move on to the co-main event here. It's a little late. I'm getting a little hoarse. Rampage Jackson defeating Wanderlei Silva by knockout. better fight than many thought it would be for two guys who were in their 40s. It was a Legends fight.
Yeah.
Dave, did it exceed expectations to you?
Oh, greatly. I mean, because, we've seen 3 or 4 Legends fights in Bellator, and in the end, it's like they sound good, and you kind of can get the grudge match aspect of it, but then at the end, you always feel like, is that really what, you know what I mean? And this was the opposite. This was one where it was like, it was better than I won't say it was better than the 2 Pride fights, but it was better than the UFC fight. The last one that they had, it was, because it went back and forth. And it was like, it wasn't like the war from start to finish, but we got enough glimpses of the war. I mean, those exchanges, and the crowd loved it. So this was I thought this fight was a big success.
Lima, were you excited by this fight as it was going on? Two guys, two big men just kind of throwing bombs at each other?
Oh, 100%. It was the battle of the dad bods, and it was like super entertaining. I mean, I was kind of cringing, but it actually, I was super impressed. Like, I was not expecting Wanderlei to be throwing up those head kicks at all. So I was just like, why? He can kick higher than me. So I was very impressed. It was a lot of fun.
Dave, Rampage Jackson, 40 years old, but seemed like he still has a lot of fight in him. Where does he go from here, and is he still someone that Bellator can kind of use in these main event, co-main event spots?
Oh, well, I'll tell you what. After this fight, yes. And the other thing, too, is when he came out, Rampage was a star. He's a personality. He can talk and everything like that. As long as he doesn't look bad in a fight, I think that he can go, as long as, he's competitive. And when he was talking out there about, as far as if he can beat Wanderlei and maybe, get another win, or even not, if he doesn't get into the heavyweight tournament, if whoever wins that tournament goes against Rampage, I think it's a viable fight, especially if it's Fedor, because there's never been Fedor in Rampage. So it's like that's 2 big names, and they're about the same age. So it's not, you're not going like, oh, he's going against some, younger, faster heavyweight. It's 2 guys, So I mean, that's viable, and yeah. But I mean, like, whoever wins that, I mean, if everyone in the heavyweight tournament except for Bader, Bader's the one who's a little bit younger, but the rest of them are all, in that age group, and I don't think it's, Bader might be one guy that might be tough for him, but the rest of them. And he did fight Vader in UFC, and it was, he got out wrestled. But I mean, yeah, you could match it up, and people will buy it, and they want to see. People always do want to see the star of the past do that one. Maybe go for that championship. It's a great story. Even if it doesn't work. But yeah, I think Rampage helped himself a lot because 1, it was exciting, and 2, he won decisively.
Did you have a dad bod comment that you wanted to get off your chest?
No, I was a fan. I was a
side.
fan of the dad bod, #dad bod. Yeah.
Let's move on to the start of the Bellator World Welterweight Grand Prix. Douglas Lima versus Andrei Koreshkov. Lima winning by 5th round submission. Lima, as far as technique goes, this one was a very high level. The fans didn't always appreciate this fight, but did they boo too soon? This was a pretty technical battle, was it not?
Yes, so I always say that anyone who boos has never stepped foot inside a cage. They've probably never trained before, because that fight, it's exhausting to be able to hold an opponent or be held against the cage like that. And I thought that Andre actually had a really smart game plan of trying to smother Lima's power punches, and just try to go for the takedown, try to get him against the cage and nullify his striking. So I thought that was a really smart game plan, and people don't understand how grueling that process is of working against the cage. So I did think that the booing was a little premature, but, I'm glad that there was a finish in the fight. I think that the fans were appreciative of that there was a decisive finish and it didn't go to the judges' card. And I actually had Lima, I bet on Lima as well for that fight. I thought it was going to be a knockout, though, so I was very pleasantly surprised when, wow, he got the rear naked choke. And but Andre, props to him for going out like a samurai, man. He did not tap. That was a really incredible finish.
What did Lima do well, do you think, in the fight throughout?
I thought, once his anti-wrestling was really good. Like Andre, I was yelling in the first round when Andre picked him up with the single leg, or the high crotch rather, picked him up twice, and Lima just landed on his feet both times. I'm like, he's a cat right now. So I kept yelling that over and over again. So I thought his anti-wrestling was really good. And then that in the 4th round, or when the finish came, he got his hips back, sprawled really beautifully, got a crucifix position, and then it was just kind of textbook after that, step by step, take the back, take the rear naked choke. So I was very impressed with Lima's anti-wrestling.
Lima will now face the winner of the Paul Daly, Michael Venom Page first round matchup. Dave, Lima winning, is that a good result for Bellator?
Yeah, in the tournament, it's like whoever wins is fine because it's just going on in the tournament. But I would say like Lima's probably a better one. I think he's more marketable in the United States of the two. Maybe more of an exciting fighter generally, so that helps. Him and Rory are probably the favorites to win the whole thing, don't you think? Going in right now at this stage,
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it worked out well. It wasn't a super exciting fight, but it was a hard, like she said, it was a hard fight. And in the end, I think Lima was going to win the decision. I had him up 4-0. It could have been 3-1 because the first round was either way. But he was cruising to the decision. But the finish makes it a lot better.
When people say Lima, do you think they're saying Ilima?
100%. I'm getting my makeup done in the back, and Ramona, she's like, "Oh, they just announced you. Are you going to go up on stage?" I'm like, "Oh, actually, I think that's Douglas Lima." Yeah, but that's my name twin. Yeah, I always think people are talking about me, but yeah, it's Douglas.
One of the biggest storylines from this card was Aaron Pico's big first round knockout of Leandro Ego. Lima, Aaron Pico, 22 years old, one of the biggest prospects in MMA history. What did he do well tonight, and what impressed you about his big knockout win over Ego?
Well, like he said on the mic afterwards, he has just this unrelenting style. He doesn't get tired. He has cardio for days. He's just going to keep coming at you with hard punches, so he doesn't, his gas tank's incredible. And yeah, he definitely packs a lot of power. So I was super impressed with how hard he was swinging and the fact that he did not let up, and he just, I agree. Like, I don't know who will be able to stop him or be able to take that kind of pressure and not end up either knocked out or completely gassed. So yeah, I thought he did very well tonight. And Hugo isn't a chump either. He's very legitimate fighter. So the fact that again, Pico was able to dominate him on the feet and get that knockout it just shows that he really is a prodigy, and he'll probably be next champion, or a future champion rather.
Ego was 18-4 coming in, and Pico still relatively inexperienced in his MMA career, 22 years old. Now is the question, Dave, how quickly do they push him? Now, they have to kind of be careful, because we thought some people thought 18-4 going against a guy like that would be a lot. But now what do you do with Aaron Pico?
But now that he's beat a guy who just came off of a championship fight, he's in that mix for the top. You can't take him away. At this point, he's already established where he's at. So, like we talked, eventually we're looking at him and Pitbull most likely if Pitbull retains the championship. But whoever, him in with the championship level fighters. The other thing is he's charismatic. He's so exciting. You watch that style and it's like even if he loses a fight, he's going to lose in a super exciting way. And if he wins, it's going to be super exciting. He's going to be one of the superstars of the sport for the next 10 years, maybe longer. It's like something pretty cool to watch. We're watching the ground floor of someone who, even if he's not going to be the greatest of all time, and who knows, maybe he will, he's going to be a great fighter.
You've been chronicling the sport for a very long time, since the beginning. We know that Aaron Pico is going to be a great fighter, but how does that translate into being a draw, being a superstar? It's not easy thing.
It's not the same thing. It's a lot has to do with exposure. A lot has to do with your talking ability. I remember when Aaron first came to San Jose, and people were saying like, "Oh, he's going to be an unbelievable fighter," but the question was, "But can he be a big draw?" Which is a completely different thing. A lot of that depends on his opponents too. If you look at most guys, and there's exceptions like Conor, who's just got the gift of gab, right? But most people, what really gets them over the top is a great opponent. So, like Chandler and Alvarez, with each other in Bellator, was probably the biggest feud Bellator ever had. And, like the one thing he's got is, Pitbull's kind of a fun, Pitbull's a super exciting fighter. So you've got that guy. Now, and the other thing is this featherweight division they got is so interesting because McKee is 12-0. It's his training partner. McKee's father is Pico's coach. They're not going to fight, and they made that very clear. And I figured that they would never fight. So it becomes a race like, who's going to get the first shot, and if he wins, what happens to the other guy? Does he move weight classes? It's kind of like that, Cormier and Velasquez thing, but Cormier dropped a weight class. So, but it's something. It's going to be a big topic of conversation because, again, I mean, McKee's looked great too. McKee's had highlight reel knockouts, and this last knockout was great. So, yeah.
Probably a good problem for Bellator to have in the future. Also on the main card, Kerry Melendez defeated Dakota Zimmerman by a split decision, and Gaston Bolanos beat Isidro Gutierrez by knockout. Just want to ask you guys one last thing. Anything else on the card stand out to you as impressive that you want to touch on?
Yes. So obviously I love watching the women fight. There's a prelim fight, Arlene Blanco versus Amber LeBrock, and that was really cool. I had it 1-1 going into the third round, and that was a really awesome slam. I think Arlene knocked out Amber with that slam, trying to get her out of the armbar, or trying to get out of her armbar. So I was really happy for Arlene. I thought it was a great fight to watch. I thought the ladies really represented tonight. I mean, even Kerry Melendez's fight, her opponent Dakota Zimmerman, I thought she had a very great game plan as well. She was just sticky. She was like a spider monkey on Kerry Melendez, trying to get her to the ground. Had her in a pretty deep submission attempt in the first round, which a lot of us thought we're like, okay, that's tight, it's closed off, like it's done, Kerry's gonna tap. But it just goes to show how tough Kerry is, and she survived that and then ended up taking the fight. So I thought the ladies really brought it tonight, and was really exciting, and luckily those girls aren't in my division. They're in 115 and 145, but so the ladies' fight stood out to me as well. But again, the whole card, literally every single fight, even on the prelims, I thought was really high level stuff and very entertaining. So I was just impressed overall with the entire Bellator 206. Definitely one of the top cards of the year.
Dave, anything else on Bellator 206 that you want to touch on that impressed you?
Not really anything in particular, other than it had the aura of a big time show. I mean, the Bellator shows that they brought here have always been fun shows to see, but this one was the one that I would say felt closest to those glory days of Strikeforce of any of the shows. Coming in, I kind of felt that because you had the Mousasi against Rory main event, which was two top class fighters, and every fight on the TV card, the big fights, all had a story, something that was interesting, a fighter that you wanted to see. So going in, it felt like that. But coming out, it was bigger. So I think that's it's good because Bellator, they need, this is the kind of shows that you need consistently to elevate the brand. I mean, I just hope that a lot of people saw it because it's the first time on DAZN, and it's not as easy as turning on your television set, even though it was free, but it's like for a first-time card. You always want that first card on the new platform to be something special, and this was about as good as you could expect.
This is them getting cut off in the UK. There was an issue.
Help. Yeah, it's so funny because again, it's like they have laws that's and to us seem like absolutely ludicrous, right? But to them, maybe the law makes sense. I mean, every country's got different values and everything like that. I've been to Japan, and their values are so different, and you kind of have to, as long as they're not like racist or something, you kind of have to respect the culture, if they're or oppressive. But their law is but it's weird because it's only broadcast TV. Then on broadcast TV at 6 a.m. you can't have MMA. I have no idea why. It makes no sense to me, but that's the regulations there. So they had to. I mean, it's a crazy story. They had to cut it off at 6 a.m. because it's like now it's morning time, and morning time we can't have fights. I don't know if you can't have boxing. I mean, which is weird because if but if you were on BT Sports, it was okay. If you're streaming, it's okay. But if you're on broadcast TV, it's not. It's when I say that and think about that, it's like that's completely ludicrous. But that's the law.
Final thing. Ilima-Lei, you are defending your Bellator Women's Flyweight title against Valerie Letourneau. Very special event in your home state of Hawaii on December 14th.
Yes.
How excited are you for this?
I've been telling everybody it's a chicken skin moment, which means, like, I guess mainlanders say goose pimples or goosebumps.
Goosebumps.
Yeah, but we call it chicken skin in Hawaii. So, and just feeling the energy tonight, being in the arena, I was saying, it's kind of nice attending one of these events and not having to fight, because then I get to enjoy it. But feeling the energy and the crowd and everything, I was like, wow. Honestly, I'm not trying to brag or anything, but Blaisdell is going to be 100 times crazier than this. SAP Center, they brought it tonight, but Blaisdell is gonna like shut the place down. And so I just know that it's gonna be crazy. And seeing the championship row, the banners up there, I'm just like, it definitely took me back to the Blaisdell Arena, and I'm like, I cannot wait for the world to see how Hawaii does it. We're gonna bring it.
Can't wait to check that out. We will wrap it up here. For Dave, for Lima, I'm Mark. Stay tuned on MMAfighting.com for all your post-Bellator 206 coverage.